deep inside a high-level tower, where the air feels heavy and corrupted mana clings to the walls like mist, an army of ghosts gathers in a massive ritual chamber, their hollow voices chanting in unison around a towering red crystal that pulses like a living. Saint Maria Jaeger senses the danger first, and shouts that they must stop the descent ritual immediately, but before the coalition of elite players can react, the crystal explodes in a storm of crimson light, and the system message every player fears flashes before their eyes, announcing that the season boss has appeared, and from the shattered ritual circle rises the Elder of Plague, a grotesque being that looks half divine and half decayed, its presence alone rotting the stone beneath its feet as a suffocating aura of disease spreads across the battlefield. The objective updates instantly to eliminate the Elder of Plague, but the moment the front line charges, they realize this is no ordinary boss's one careless swipe sends armored warriors crashing into walls, shields corrode in seconds, weapons crumble to rust, and a single pulse of corrupted energy infects dozens at once, their HP bars plummeting while Saint Maria desperately channels divine light to keep them alive, yet the plague spreads faster than her miracles can mend, and players begin shouting in panic that they don't want to die. The formation collapses, and the Elder slowly raises its arm to deliver a finishing blow that would wipe out what remains of humanity's elite force. But just before the attack lands, a sharp line of silver cuts through the incoming wave of decay and splits it clean in half. The Elder of Plague laughs at Yusung for daring to challenge it alone, calling him foolish and arrogant, promising to submerge the so-called hope of humanity in a sea of decay where no one can witness his end. But Yusung does not respond, because he never wastes words in battle. Instead, he steps forward, and the ground freezes beneath him as frost mana gathers with terrifying density, the clash between plague and ice erupting like a natural disaster inside the chamber, shockwaves cracking pillars, energy storms tearing across the ceiling as the two forces collide in rapid exchanges too fast for most players to follow. And though the Elder unleashes wave after wave of corruption capable of ending armies, Yusung cuts through each one with precise, economical movements, as if solving a mathematical equation rather than fighting for his life, until at last he channels a surge of power so concentrated that even Saint Maria feels it in her bones, and in one overwhelming strike he cleaves through the boss's core, freezing the corruption at its source and shattering it into nothingness, triggering system notifications that confirm the season boss has been eliminated, granting him the mythical equipment Black Death and the title Elder Slayer while the tower stabilizes, and the catastrophe is prevented for another year, securing humanity's fragile survival. Once again, yet the story does not end with cheers, because later, in Geneva at a United Nations Interim Assembly, where the top 10 players gather before cameras and world leaders, reporters ask the Hero King how it feels to save humanity again, and what message he would like to share with the people watching from their homes, and Saint Maria quietly urges him to say something inspiring, something comforting, something worthy of a symbol. But instead Yusung looks directly into the cameras and calmly states that he does it all for the money, that he was finished a long time ago, and the silence that follows is louder than any explosion as the world erupts into controversy. Social media explodes with outrage, boycotts of Hero King merchandise spread globally, debates rage over whether the man protecting humanity even believes in it anymore. Yet when the next season begins and new towers generate across the sky, with system messages announcing their formation percentage, when civilians once again look up in fear at structures descending from the heavens, Yusung logs in without hesitation and stands alone before another gate, casually wondering whether he should go save the world again, as if deciding what to eat for dinner. Before stepping inside and clearing the first floors effortlessly, dispatching monsters with clinical efficiency, showing no excitement and no strain as if the early stages are beneath him, until he reaches higher levels where hordes of orcs await chanting about honor and Valhalla, elite mobs blessed by higher beings known as elders who observe players for their own amusement, granting blessings to those who entertain them. As the battle intensifies, Yusung receives enhanced swordsmanship aptitude from the Elder of Steel, strengthened frost magic from the Elder of Frost, and even a rare blessing from the Elder of Golden Legend that unlocks legendary tier rewards including a hero tier skill and a hero tier artifact known as Frozen Heart, an item capable of amplifying frost abilities through glacier synergy, but one that demands careful handling due to its immense output. And though he hesitates, briefly knowing that using such power too early can disrupt long-term calculations, the relentless assault of elite arcs forces his decision, and he equips the artifact, unleashing a surge of freezing energy that transforms his blade into a weapon of glacial destruction, immobilizing enemies mid-charge and shattering their defenses with surgical strikes, leveling up repeatedly without rest floors to recover, pushing forward through escalating resistance until he reaches the boss chamber, The Blood Moon Singer arc activates Berserk, and the entire boss arena trembles under the shockwave of its power, cracks racing across the ground as red energy explodes outward in a violent ring. And even from a distance, Yusung can calculate the raw damage output of that strike, realizing that if it connects directly, his HP will drop to 0 instantly. So instead of retreating blindly, he accelerates, timing every movement down to the fraction of a second as the countdown ticks in his vision. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And at the exact moment the berserk duration ends, he slips through the opening and drives his frost blade through the arc's core, shattering the Blood Moon aura and triggering the system notification that the boss floor has been cleared and the Tower of the Blood Moon Arc tribe conquered, granting him an elemental skill card pack and the special achievement First Conqueror. And as the acceleration potion effect fades, he can't help but mutter that things have been going a little too well, because in this world luck never comes without a price. He opens the elemental pack hoping for something worthy of tier 3 difficulty, only to receive a common ice bolt card, and instead of excitement he sighs in disappointment at what he calls a trash game reward, though he equips it anyway because even common skills can become lethal in the right hands. Then immediately enters the next structure, the Tower of the Devil-worshipping imps, where cultist creatures swarm him screaming about sacrificing Hethans to their demon king, attacking in coordinated waves despite their small size, and Yusung calmly fires ice bolt after ice bolt, watching the skill level increase in real time as Wave 1 collapses, Wave 2 begins, and more imps rush forward chanting for damnation, only to be frozen mid-charge and shattered in sequence, leveling up both Ice Bolt and create Frost Blade as the tower boss, the Imp Heretic, finally appears preaching about honoring the Demon King with the player's blood. Yusung decides this is the perfect testing ground and experiments with the maximum number of frost weapons he can generate simultaneously, splitting his blade into multiple spears of ice that hover in formation before launching like artillery and pinning the heretic in place under stacked freeze effects, eliminating it cleanly and clearing the tower to receive a random equipment ticket that gives him nothing more than silver plate mail, useless compared to his legendary gear. Yet the real reward comes moments later when a faction event triggers and the Shadow Council manifests, whispering that they remember him and offering reunion with his shadow if he joins their veil. He negotiates without hesitation, demanding a Shadow Beast and a rare Darkness Element skill card, pushing the line just enough to test their pride until they finally grant him a cat-like Shadow Beast and the rare skill Shadow Blade, increasing his faction affinity as he officially joins the Shadow Council, amused that the season feels almost too smooth, and wondering whether to continue pressing forward while momentum favors him or pause to adjust before hidden variables catch up. But before he decides, reporters swarm him again about conquering 2 Tier 3 towers on day 1 and climbing toward rank. When already comparing him to China's Swordmaster, who has cleared higher tiers at heavy cost, 4 veterans dead in one assault, yet Yusung dismisses the race casually, calling the Swordmaster a nut job and then admitting he's won too, because if there's glory to be claimed he intends to win it. When news arrives that the Swordmaster has entered a Tier 5 tower alone, Yusung smiles and decides it's time to play the real game, entering the Tower of War, where the scenario drops him into a historical siege between the Empire of Kaval and the Kingdom of Rhodia, a simulated battlefield where players choose sides and the disadvantaged faction earns better rewards. So he selects Rhodia and appears inside the Fortress of Palace as soldiers kneel believing a divine visitor has arrived to save them, only to find their commander boasting about limitless morale despite a hopeless numerical disadvantage of 5,000 conscripts against an overwhelming imperial army, and Yusung immediately takes control by force, dismissing the incompetent leadership and gathering real numbers, infantry counts, archers, supply lines, analyzing the absence of magic in this world, and recognizing that unlike most players he can receive blessings from multiple elders due to his unique contract with the Elder of Jesters, whereas the Swordmaster, apostle of the Elder of Steel, is restricted to steel-based dominance. The morale of Rhodia's troops soars as Yusung assumes command, and when the Empire launches its offensive, he unleashes his Shadow Beast across the castle wall, a black blur tearing through enemy formations and freezing entire squads in coordinated strikes, boosting allied morale while exposing his location to the rival player, because within this tower players cannot directly kill each other but must defeat the opposing champion to secure victory. And right on cue, swords begin moving independently across the battlefield as the Swordmaster finally reveals himself wielding sword manipulation, likely bestowed by the Elder of Steel itself, flooding the sky with controlled blades. But Yusung counters with Shadow Blade and Frost constructs, understanding that sophistication decreases as control spreads thinner, baiting the Swordmaster into focusing on him while secretly slipping away under cover of chaos, because he knows the true win condition is not slaughtering soldiers, but eliminating the Imperial command. While the Sword Master confronts him about the duty of heroes and accuses him of arrogance unworthy of the Hero King title, Yusung calmly questions whether that duty includes sacrificing guild members for pride, destabilizing his opponent psychologically before sprinting straight into the enemy command barracks, where panic erupts as he assassinates Duke Burmat and annihilates the Empire's leadership in minutes, causing the Imperial army to retreat without orders and clearing the siege. Scenario instantly, earning the right to steal one of the Sword Master's skills and choosing sword manipulation itself, smiling as he equips it and strengthens his metal attribute synergy, leaving his rival furious and vowing revenge. And yet beneath the tactical brilliance and ruthless efficiency lies a deeper repetition, because as the system announces Season 2, King of Heroes, Yusung dreams once more of the Elder of Jesters, asking if he wishes to become a hero of heroes at the cost of being misunderstood and ridiculed for life, a bargain he has accepted countless times in looping memories, revealing that this path has been walked before, that the title Hero King is not glory but a curse chosen knowingly. He wakes to missed calls from Park Tae-shik, once a PC room manager who recognized his gaming genius when Yusung was just 15 and unbeatable at any title he touched, the man who convinced his parents to let him pursue professional gaming, who refined his talent and stood by him until Season 1 shattered the world, when towers first appeared and monsters poured out during the first tower break, the day Yusung lost both his parents in the chaos and saw Tae-shik risk everything to pull him from. Now Tae-shik is Deathblade, a top-ranked assassin aligned with the Elder of Assassins and serving under the National Intelligence Agency, scolding Yusung for ignoring calls, mocking his messy lifestyle and cheap takeout meals despite earning fortunes. As Kang Yusung sits across from his unexpected guest and calmly asks, "What brought you here today?" the man straightens his posture and replies that he has come on behalf of the Korean Player Association, the country's sole official player guild, the organization that controls, evaluates, and regulates every registered player in the nation. The association had recently established the Player Academy, a live training center meant to nurture future elites, and they were preparing to hold their very first flag-bearer graduation exam. Officially, they wanted the Hero King to attend as a symbolic figure, someone whose presence alone would enlighten the ceremony. Unofficially, however, there were other motives layered beneath the invitation. Yusung listens without expression, and when told he doesn't have to bother with such trivial events, he unexpectedly says, "I will go." At dawn, the academy grounds buzz with tension. Students whisper among themselves, some excited, some irritated. Many are already guaranteed graduation due to internal arrangements. Some scoff at the early hour, muttering that being called the Hero King doesn't make him superior to the system that trained them. They assume this evaluation is merely ceremonial. But when Yusung arrives, dressed not extravagantly but in his combat attire, the atmosphere shifts. Lee Sung-ho, the KPA president, formally hands him authority as judge under previously discussed conditions. Yusung clarifies one thing: if he is testing them, then the authority to determine who graduates rests entirely in his hands. The president reluctantly agrees. The exam begins. It ends almost immediately. One by one, students are dismissed. Failed, get out. No explanation, no encouragement, no second chances. Shock spreads through the watching officials. Soon, only one student remains, someone who had been ignored throughout the test. The boy nervously assumes he has failed as well, but Yusung says, "You pass." Yusung answers coldly, "Because you were lucky. Among 12, you were ignored until the end. That means you were the luckiest. Remember, being a player is all about luck." With that, he declares the exam over and orders the cameras turned off. But they were never truly off. When confronted by the furious KPA president, Yusung exposes their ulterior motive. The entire event was designed to collect combat data on him, to measure how elite academy graduates performed against the Hero King, and to present a public narrative of systematic superiority. They intended to use his presence to validate their political structure. He calls the academy rotten, accusing them of nurturing hunting dogs for the association's benefit. President Retaliitis, arguing that players are national weapons tied directly to military power, that every country operates the same way, that in this new world peace is maintained by war heroes. He demands Yusung cooperate for the sake of the motherland. Yusung leaves without answering. Hours later, leaked footage explodes across media networks, exposing the academy's favoritism and corruption. Internal conflict between government intelligence agencies and the association surfaces again. Political factions clash quietly behind the scenes. The academy's reputation collapses before its first class can even formally graduate. And Yusung, he shows no reaction. Instead, he asks for a ride to a Tier 5 structure, the Pale Desert Tower. Inside the tower, he appears at the Desert Oasis caravan camp during a monster assault, perfectly timed as always, like a messiah descending at humanity's most desperate moment. Merchants and knights witness him eliminate desert beasts effortlessly. They call him the Apostle of Light. He neither confirms nor denies it. He notices inconsistencies, aura-using knights guarding a mysterious carriage with more intensity than they guard the people. Suspicion forms. At night, after gaining stamina recovery items and a growth stone, he continues clearing waves of scorpion monsters and sand predators, leveling skills rapidly. Sword manipulation improves. Create frost blade strengthens. Blackie grows stronger. But the real tension isn't from monsters, it's from the Knights of the Blood Cross, whose loyalty seems tied not to the caravan, but to whatever lies hidden inside the carriage. The truth emerges during a pagan ambush. The Knights prioritize the cargo over civilian lives. Yusung intervenes, freezing both sides when necessary, demanding answers. Under pressure, the secret spills. The goods are Princess Celia of the Ayubid Kingdom, a political hostage disguised as cargo. That revelation shifts the entire mission structure. Yusung allows the attacking desert elves to retreat alive, altering the natural flow of the scenario. The system responds immediately. Hidden achievement, Princess Rescue, tier difficulty adjusted to tier 5 hard. Hostility from the Watchers of Light increases. The tower has acknowledged his interference. For the first time in this run, divine forces intervene directly. Messengers of Light descend, accusing him of heresy. Yusung aligns with the Shadow Council instead, activating Veil of Darkness and transforming the battlefield into a territory where light weakens and shadows strengthen. Angels clash against shadow constructs. The desert fractures under holy and dark energy. He eliminates them methodically, calculating tier restrictions and rule limitations that even monarchs must obey. He becomes a sworn enemy of the Watchers of Light. Friendliness with the Shadow Council drastically increases. And then, just when he begins gaining the upper hand, when darkness suppresses radiance and frost blades pierce divine forms, an angel exploits a momentary blind spot, appearing behind him in a flash of condensed brilliance. A spear of radiance pierces through his chest. The battlefield falls silent. For a second, it looks as though the hero king has finally miscalculated. But frost spreads from the wound instead of blood, and the real battle begins. Instead of collapsing, he smiles, and that single expression sends a ripple of unease through heaven itself because the Sword of Radiance resets to its prior position in time, folds back upon the fatal second. The assassin's triumph turning into horror as reality corrects itself. Everybody stop, something's not right, when Angel cries, but it is already too late as the hero king pivots within the rewound instant and unleashes a perfected sword technique that cleaves through the descending angels with merciless precision. Light scattering like shattered glass while system notifications calmly announce level up, blue buff exhausted, duration expired, and the battlefield empties into silence. As the last divine body falls, he murmurs that he feels himself becoming something smaller, less human, and more aligned with the tower's logic, and a distant voice mocks that he will become a monster at this rate. But he shrugs it off when a princess, half fearful, half curious, asks why he betrayed his own people to stand on this side, and he answers lightly that the rewards are simply better here, joking about misanthropy while reminding her he has no intention of charging ransom. Days later at the Ayubid border within the Elf Kingdom, she thanks him for an indescribable debt, yet he only cares about unclaimed rewards, and upon clearing the Pale Desert Tower on hard mode, he receives a rare accessory called the Token of Trust, proof that strategy outweighs brute force, though his attention is quickly pulled back to the modern world as intelligence reports warn of movement near Busan Station. Specifically, a criminal player named Natasha Ivanova, internationally infamous, affiliated with the Black Players, formerly tied to the Red Mafia, and pursued by Russian authorities before smuggling herself into Busan port to farm nearby towers with 4 subordinates, wielding the legendary skill card Veil of Darkness. When told something is about to happen, he reluctantly boards the train, joking about zombie movies, yet demanding a car upon arrival, and once informed the target tower is tier 5, he enters without hesitation, discovering a scenario set in the early SD century, where a deadly virus leaked from a confidential Busan laboratory, the streets overrun by starving infected and remnants of a corporate military unit, grotesque monsters shambling through smoke-filled corridors until his evolved companion, Blackie, empowered by a growth stone, tears through them with terrifying efficiency. Natasha greets him confidently, mocking whether he intends to arrest her, revealing she anticipated his arrival, Reflamen and a sniper positioned within a curtain of engineered darkness. Yet he notices inconsistencies because true absolute darkness would blind even her allies, deducing instead a legendary illusion-type skill manipulating visual data Oculus, and when her projection dissolves he reveals he was never deceived, having analyzed sensory interference patterns from the start. Combat erupts, bullets slicing through warped space while he counters with ice shields and shadow displacement, dismantling her formation until automated classified enforcement robots detect survivors and initiate extermination protocol, forcing a chaotic three-way clash where achievement points become currency for survival, as a desperate woman spends 374,000 points on random skill card packs hoping for a mythological draw, receiving only normals while he watches with detached curiosity until probability peaks and he purchases a pack himself, upgrading Ice Bolt rather than chasing Spectacle. The robots intensify attacks. He destroys them efficiently, clears the zombie apocalypse tower, and acquires Oculus legitimately, noting that those killed directly by players may return but tower-caused deaths are final, choosing to let Natasha live as compensation, and as a living message to spread word of the Hero King rather than silencing her, insisting he is no psycho killer but a pragmatic participant in a war disguised as heroism. Back in the real-world media debates his morality, some calling him a thug, others praising secret donations and seasonal dominance. Yet before he can rest he is summoned again, this time to a different world where Saintess Alicia Celestina of the Holy Celestina Kingdom proclaims him the answer to their prayers, recounting the ancient war between heavenly beings and demons and the creation of the Holy Weapon Arc. Warning that seals are weakening and a trial must be passed lest humans misuse divine power. Bored yet efficient, he predicts half her exposition before she finishes, only taking interest when a demon breaches holy ground immune to divine magic, forcing him to intervene while she prays, the demon taunting that the Ark will soon plunge the world into darkness before fleeing, prompting a rapid pursuit toward Labyrinth City Garcia, a neutral territory between the Holy Kingdom and the Dragon Empire built above an ancient subterranean maze and the most logical hiding place for Ark. He secures an adventurer's license, despite a meticulous death disclaimer surrendering body and belongings upon fatality, descends through accelerating floors with saintly support magic, while opportunistic adventurers clear paths, eventually encountering labyrinth bandits in collusion with guild corruption who prey upon newcomers, and rather than fight immediately, he theatrically narrates the world's origin story to them, claiming he is a warrior from another world seeking Ark for global peace, only to be mocked before effortlessly dismantling their ranks. A powerful guild-affiliated woman emerges, revealing systemic exploitation, where lives are reduced to monetary calculation, but she too falls before his superior skill and Blackie's relentless shadow strikes, exposing the rot beneath the labyrinth's promise of fortune. As night approaches and the path clears, he reflects that players, whether called visitors, apostles, or heroes, are not saviors but weapons shaped by war, their morality defined by outcomes rather than ideals, and yet, despite claiming indifference, he continues forward, into deeper levels, into conspiracies binding guild and bandit, into trials guarding Ark, because whether by boredom, calculation, or some fragment of responsibility, he refuses to let any script, divine or demonic, decide the ending without his intervention.